What's up, guys? If you're new here, my name is Dom. Welcome to Faith Family Homestead. I grow here. We live on 2.6 acres, but my garden's probably, I think when I measured it, it was like 1/10 of an acre. It's 5,000 square feet, so it's 50 by 100. And we are in the front part of my garden right here. Right at the front part of my garden, there's not much going on. I'm transitioning. I have colorful metal garden beds all over going this way, and I'm going to be changing the design over this fall. And so right now, this is what you're seeing is just like I'm filling these beds because they're empty, so I'm putting logs and sticks in them, and then eventually I'll add soil in them. So there's not much going on at the front of the garden. I have my garden on two sides. If you watched my last video, I showed how this wasn't even a pathway, and so we did come in here and clean down this. There's an in-ground bed. It's about 40 feet, and we cleaned it out so that we could walk down this pathway. Like I said, this side of my garden isn't really producing that much things. We'll just casually walk down here and show you. This first bed is sweet corn. I've harvested all of my sweet corn, and I did end up planting some pole beans to grow up the sweet corn, and so there are some pole beans still inside this bed, but for the most part, this corn is all done, and I'm just leaving the bed here so that way weeds don't grow until I'm ready to transition the bed or cover it with black plastic. The next bed is where I had harvested so many pounds of bush beans and my pole beans. Right now, all of the bush beans have died back. You can actually see the dry, crispy beans. So if I open this, there's beans in it. I can feel it. So this whole bed right here is filled with dried beans, and it's not growing weeds right now, except for like right here, but that's because there wasn't a lot of beans here. But in the places where there are a lot of beans, the beans leaves has died and is covering the soil, which is a good thing, as well as all of the bean pods. And so I'm really happy about this bed. My pole beans, they're still in the midst of drying up. They haven't dried up completely. Same thing with this next bed. It also had bush beans in here, and they're still on their way drying up and finishing drying up. This next bed is where I had cut flowers and my cucumbers. I did plant another round of cucumbers, and so you can see down here at the end, so there's one cucumber down here. There's still a cucumber here, and I planted one here, and I planted some seeds, but they haven't come up yet. So this is my cucumber area, and then right next to it is my perennial herb bed. So I have my thyme, my sage, I have 2 eucalyptus plants. This all right here is pennyroyal, with the exception of this is oregano, stevia. We have a daylily here, and then down here, which you really can't see, it was, I think this one was called lemon thyme, and it's variegated. This grass right here is trying to take it over. Oh, I see something exciting down here. This was my squash bed at the beginning of the year. We still do have some eggplant down in there. This is my first year growing eggplant. There's about 4 down in there. Now, do you want to pick those eggplants in there? We have celery. I did replant some squash in here, but I don't see that any has germinated. And there's another eggplant. But down here, I see that we have some honeydew, which is not ready. Usually honeydew and cantaloupe, when it's ready, it falls off. Oh yeah, and there's some cantaloupe there, and it just falls off the vine, and it hasn't. Yes? It has what? Thorns? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for picking them. So most of the things on this side of the garden is where I had my early spring garden. So next bed was melons. There are still some melons, and there's still some winter squash in here, but a lot of grass has also taken over in these next two beds. I do plan on coming in here and getting control of these beds, but for right now, this side of the garden is pretty weedy. The only thing that hasn't produced on this side yet is this corn. So this corn is actually grinding corn, and it's corn that I saved from my last year's corn. I don't see any silks hanging out, but it does have tassels. This is my first time saving corn and replanting it, so I don't know how that's going to work out, but we shall see. Thank you. Wow, I didn't know there was 5 there. Thank you. No, you can put it at the front of the garden or bring it inside.
I always put it inside the front of the garden.
Okay. This next bed is my watermelon patch. You can see it's going all the way out there. It does have some weeds as well. But I've harvested a watermelon 2 days ago from here. I've harvested one watermelon from there and from there. The one I harvested from here 2 days ago was 30 pounds. And all of them were orange watermelons, but you can see we still have some watermelons in here. And then right across from it, which is what I call my cross bed, this was all of my early pumpkins. There is a lavender plant there, and then there's 4 apple trees in here. But you can see I replanted my pumpkins and they are starting to come back. But over here is another watermelon patch. I had actually wanted to cover this bed, or was thinking about covering this bed with plastic, and then I had some extra watermelon plants, and so I just went ahead and planted them into this bed, and you can see there's some really big ones. I'm sure these are really huge in here. That watermelon actually got stepped on because it's open, but there's watermelons all throughout here. This is also the bed where I've harvested, I think, like 2 cantaloupes out of here, and they were delicious, beyond delicious. They were so juicy. And then going back is nothing. That's my asparagus bed, but right now it's mixed with asparagus and weeds. The next bed is covered. This has my flowers, my zinnias, and my zinnias over there, and some sunflowers, but all that's going to seed right now. And then this bed is half covered. This is where my winter squashes were, and they died, and I pulled them, and I did replant them, but I don't really see where anything's really coming up. And then I checked my planting schedule and realized that I probably planted too early, and that the heat probably kept it from germinating. And so I'm gonna have to wait until probably 1 more month, and then I'm gonna try and replant some stuff to see if it was just the heat that was like holding them back, so that I can get a second round of some of my squashes. This bed right here is my raspberry patch. I did have some strawberry plants in here, but not a lot of them survived. It got taken over by cucuzzi. Was it a cucuzzi? No, a trombonzino. And I was letting it grow because my trombonzino, didn't, or my cucuzzi didn't germinate where I planted it, and so I was hoping that it was a cucuzzi, but it wasn't, and so we pulled it out, and now we're just letting the raspberries grow, because this is where I want my raspberries to be going forward. These raspberries are actually on their first year. I got them from Tractor Supply, and I think there's 9 in here. But my hope is next year to build a trellis around them to keep them up. So now the side that I spend the majority of my time on, this is where I have all of my tomatoes. So this first bed right here, which I'm at the back of my garden, but this is my determinate bed. and you can see there's not really any tomatoes on them. They've all like died. I just haven't pulled them because I did try to plant a second round of determinate tomatoes, but then I forgot. I took them out of the bottom watering tray and they dried out. Forgetful me. And so I did not have a second round of determinate tomatoes like I was thinking to go in this bed, but I am leaving it because I don't want, although it has the landscape fabric to not grow weeds, you can see weeds want to come out of nowhere, even the little holes, and so I'm not ready to pull this bed yet. And then my second tomato bed is all of my beefsteaks, and again, there's not a lot of tomatoes that are still alive, but there are a couple of really big tomatoes. There's one down there that I see split, and there's one over that way, but for the most part you can see they're diseased, which leads us right over to this bed. This is probably where I got my latest harvest from. So this is my sweet pepper bed. I would definitely do this again. It's I like the way it turned out, with the exception of this marigold that's shining, or not marigold. This is morning glory, not marigold. This is morning glory right at the front. And yeah, it's trying to take over out of every little corner, but I'm not mad at it because the bugs are eating the marigold and leaving my peppers alone. Then right here is where I have my smaller tomatoes. You can see, but again, they're all dying back. And then all of my cherries are probably the ones that's holding on the best, with the least amount of disease. We do have morning glory in here, but I did plant a lot of hybrids that was supposed to do really well in heat. So this Jasper down here is a hybrid from Haas Tools, and it's been giving me cherry tomatoes non-stop and does not look hurt at all on their leaves. They're not diseased, so I'm not worried about these tomatoes, but there are some in here that are diseased. What is this?
Grape. It's squishier.
It tastes like a grape. Is it sweet? I'm nervous.
The one I had was sweet.
I'm nervous. Oh my goodness, so it has seeds in it, but it is actually sweet, which makes sense because 2 days ago, my son sent me a picture of deers. People usually ask me if I have like problems with critters eating my produce, and I don't, because we have our dogs out here most of the time. But the other day, we saw, or my son came home late and saw that there was a deer on the outside of this fence, and he was eating, oh my goodness, he was eating, yeah, those grapes are ready.
Oh!
There was 2 deers out here, and they were, looked like they were eating grapes, and that makes sense if the grapes are ready.
And there's so much beetles. Well.
Okay, so we get scissors and a bowl so we could like snip the whole. That's exciting.
It is ready.
That is so good. It legit tastes like a very sweet grape. We probably actually waited a little too long because the one I tasted was actually fairly soft, and I don't know how long grapes last, but it was really good. So I'm just gonna come back right over here because after the tomato bed, we only have 2 more beds, which is my spicy pepper beds. And in my last video, I harvested about 6 pounds of spicy peppers and 6 pounds of sweet peppers. And I still have lots of peppers in here. My peppers are probably going to be going strong all the way until the frost. Usually I do have some eggplant, 2 eggplants up here, but like the lemon drop, which is really spicy, but we won't do that again. They're all starting to turn. And so usually my peppers last all the way until the frost. So I'm not worried about these at all. So I wanted to show you guys what the garden looked like in mid-July, because it's about to start changing when I'm getting ready for my fall garden. I've shared I'm not going to have really like a lot of crops out here. I'm going to spend most of the fall leading into the winter switching some things around. I love everything about what I did on this side with my tomatoes and my peppers, but this side I'm going to be changing some of the trellising down this middle bed, which I didn't really go over besides saying what was here, but this was an in-ground bed, and for the last 2 years I've planted tomatoes in it. And in my last video, if you watched it, it was really full of basil that was going to seed, so you couldn't really walk down the pathways. So we did end up cutting it back on both sides so that we could walk down this pathway without the basil and the tomatoes, like, you know, we couldn't walk without stepping on it. So I wanted to show you guys before we start pulling things and transitioning things out and like moving all the garden all over, to show you what it looks like right now, mid-July, before everything starts changing and I really start reconstructing the garden for next year. This is my 3rd year gardening in this area, and this year by far has been the best year as far as harvest, and I've weighed all my harvests. And so I can't wait to the end of the year where I get to tally up all of my totals for the whole year and see how much I got and see what will be the plan going forward next year. And I'll bring you guys along with me as I am working on transitioning the garden into a new design next year. So this garden tour was fairly quick, but I just wanted to show you guys before what it looked like right now before it starts changing, because I don't think I've done a garden tour in quite a while. So thank you guys for hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys on my next video.